welcome back. Oh man, you're gonna love this. One of my favorites. I don't want to be prejudiced, but man, I love my poets, and we have a poet here today for you. My name is Vin Dacquino. Today we have Ann Cifola.
Yes, great to see you.
Great to see you. What a pleasure. You have written 3 books of poetry, and we can't wait to hear who you are, Ann. How did you get into this? How did poetry become a passion?
Vinny, I think for me, poetry was my first language. So it's just a matter of getting aligned with that. When I was in 2nd grade, my teacher sent home a note to my parents saying, "Your daughter speaks in poetry." So my parents never forgot that, and they brought that up every time I enjoyed doing some creative writing. So I was encouraged both at school and at home.
Oh, excellent. I'm looking at the cameras over here. One thing about poetry is it's like an avenue into who you are and what you are. And it's a chance to say what you feel. A lot of people write and then they hide it in the bottom drawer. Were you open about your poetry right from the beginning?
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Because, a lot of kids are very nervous about writing poetry, and they don't want to share it. Did you share it relatively early on?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When I felt like I had a meaningful subject in high school, I made sure my poems got in the literary journal, and that was convenient because I had a crush on the editor. So I got involved in the literary journal and wrote my poetry, and it got in. And
Wow.
and even though it was deeply personal, it was.
I have written over a dozen books. I didn't write my first book until I was almost 30 years old, because my teachers and my friends certainly didn't encourage it. And it just wasn't the kind of thing that you talked about.
Right.
So it took a long time. So I'm pleased that you did it relatively early. Now, a lot of poets have central themes. I do a lot of writing about death. Not that I'm afraid of it, I just explore it, even in terms of the paranormal.
Oh, right.
What are your themes? What would you call your central themes?
I don't know if I have central themes, but each book has,
book
kind
has
of
a
a
central theme.
theme.
Cool.
So,
Let's call one up.
all right, the first one that I wrote is Face Painting in the Dark.
There you go.
And it's really about a woman's exploration of the world through astronomy, through work, through spirituality. And when I wrote it, it is very much like, there's a saying by the French Jesuit Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. And he said, most
Say
people...
that when you're drunk.
Yeah, not even sure I got it right. He said most people think that we're humans having a spiritual experience, and what he says is that we're spirits having a human experience.
Oh, I like that.
So that's the spirit really behind this book.
Oh, wow, I like that. Do you have a favorite poem in there? Didn't know I was going to ask you that, huh?
No. I think, I love them all. It's like children. You can't choose.
You're absolutely right. That was a favorite quote for me from, I had a writer friend come to my class, and one of the students said to her, "Which book of yours or story do you like the best?" She said, "Oh my goodness, it's like my children.
Yeah.
I love them all the same amount, but in different ways."
Yes, that's it.
Good answer.
That's it, exactly. And some of them get A's and go to Harvard, and others are still kind of left behind, but you love them all.
Yeah, that's right. And it's just, there's just special, they have special things.
Yeah.
So you capture some of those special things. And I hate to ask you this, but how long ago was this?
This is 2014.
2014. Wow,
Yes,
that's good.
yes.
And then after that, 2 more came.
Yes, and then 2017, I wrote Free Fairy.
So explain
And-
Free Fairy.
Okay, Free Fairy is a dual narrative poem. It's a book-length poem. There are 2 narratives. So the top line narrative is kind of a mythic remembrance of 1960s suburbia. The Cold
wow.
War,
Oh, God,
the
I remember those
prosperity,
days.
the abundance, and yet there was the chilling aspect of the bomb shelters in people's homes,
Yeah.
the duck and cover drills.
Oh, I remember
So
those.
that, and then the bottom line is I actually have a relative who was a scientist on the Manhattan Project, and this person helped separate plutonium. And so I heard all these stories about how that came about, and that became the bottom line. And so the 2 stories kind of resonate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Clever.
So
it's really basically a story.
yeah, it's in poetry, but I'm just going to hold this up because so you can
There
see.
you go. Yeah, they actually have your cover up on the
okay.
screen.
The inside is,
now,
you see 2 narratives. So the top
wow.
line is
Oh,
the
interesting. That's an
suburban, and the bottom
Interesting way of
is the
way of doing it.
scientific.
Yeah. Now, my writers always ask me, and we have a great audience of writers, and they are always looking for, when, how, where so the inspiration for this book was the reality of your life at the time.
Really, the inspiration for this book was a memory I had. When I was very young, I went downstairs and I found my mother trying to sing The Girl from Ipanema to the stereo. And my mother was a classic 1960s housewife who only made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And the idea that she would be trying to sing The Girl from Ipanema blew my 5-year-old mind. And that just stayed with me, and that kind of opened the whole can of worms of what was this time about?
Yeah.
And, women had to be underground, literally.
Yeah.
So.
And I do a lot of public speaking, and I do a lot of writing, and there's something that I say 1,000 times a year. If we do not teach the children of today about their yesterday, we're stealing a piece of their tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So by writing about this era that they
Yes.
did not exist in,
Right.
it gives them a view of what life could have been, would have been, was.
And a lot of baby boomers who read this book love it because it's rich with the detail of,
Been there,
you
done
could call
that.
up the phone and have potato chips
Yeah.
delivered to your house.
Yeah.
You could have your knives sharpened.
Yeah.
The guy with the clanging bell would come by and all these things.
Charles Chips.
Charles Chips.
We had 'em delivered.
The Borden milk
Got in
truck.
trouble for it, but we had them delivered.
The Delwood milk truck.
Yeah.
I mean, there are
we
things.
even had. I grew up in Utica. You know why all the other places had ice cream trucks?
Yeah.
We had pizza trucks.
Oh.
And the pizza truck would come by, and instead of the memories are so vivid. When the ice cream man came, it was SOFTEE, Mr. Softy, and then it had the little thing, and you ran out to the ice cream truck, and then there was the pizza truck, and the pizza truck would come, and you'd buy a slice of pizza right out of their little window. It was wonderful.
I wish I grew up on your block.
It was crazy days, and then it was normal life. Today it's a memory of normal life.
Right, exactly.
And it's gone unless
Yes.
we keep it alive.
Right, exactly.
And that's why I fight the way I fight for Sybil Ludington. She truly would be dead if we don't remember her. And we have to remember her. Not only remember her for who she was. Her ride was a defining moment. But she lived to be 77.
Incredible.
What did she do with the other 76 years?
Incredible. Incredible.
And that's crucial.
Well, people need to know the history of where they live. I feel very strongly
Yep.
about
Yeah,
that.
I totally agree.
For instance, when I was first married, my husband took me up to the Kensico Dam.
Oh, yeah.
And there were still Nike silos there.
Wow.
You could crawl down in them. Now that it's a big development
Yeah,
of
yeah.
big McMansions, but that's our history.
It was a different life, and
Yeah.
and I remember being at a hockey game up in Utica. That was a big thing, the Clinton Comets, and I was at a hockey game, and somebody had a transistor radio, and they just announced that we might be going to war with Cuba because of the missiles, that they had missiles aimed at us, and I was terrified as a kid. I remember wanting to cry at this game. I was truly, truly afraid for my life. So capturing that era is really important. So you wrote a third book.
All
Who
right,
is
now.
the hero?
Okay, so this, in all fairness, I translated a French poet.
Oh, wow.
And she lives in
Is that one of those names I
Arles.
can't pronounce again?
She sounds paysanne, Hélène Sanguinetti. So,
Hey, it does.
but she's French, and I actually have translated another book of hers. But it's been a wonderful relationship. She's almost been like a mentor to me.
Wow.
And I encourage people to look into translating, because even if you have a little bit of high school, French or Spanish
Yeah.
or another language, the doors that open up to writers,
Yeah.
it's so easy to get into journals.
That's so crucial, because it took me a very long time to understand that writers were not only the people that were being taught to me in school, that there were some writers out there that I had no idea existed. So when I went to college and I was introduced to Black literature, it blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because I saw a different perspective for life.
Yes.
And I saw real living.
Yes.
I saw rats running across the floor,
Yes.
jumping into a baby's crib.
Absolutely.
I saw a young man accidentally kill a white girl
Yeah.
out of fear.
Right.
And these books were just amazing.
Yeah.
Native Son and James Baldwin. And that helped me to realize that there's other people out there, and they don't have to all be from your country.
Right.
There's people all over the world writing wonderful books.
Yes.
And teaching us things about other ways of life. So you capture that in here.
And it's difficult work. It's experimental
I can
writing.
imagine.
No, it's
I can barely
experimental.
speak English, let alone.
Well, I'm talking
Latin.
the French is experimental. Like I gave the French to a friend of mine who's a native speaker, and she said I got a headache reading.
Oh no. Yeah,
but
because
it's
American writers aren't the only unusual people.
right. Well, no,
Yeah.
but it's deliberately difficult.
Oh, wow.
So that's her shtick.
Yeah.
And I've been along for the ride for about 20 years translating her work.
Wow.
And it's pretty special.
Wow. So now, for all those writers of mine at home, their question to me almost always is when, where, how. So Anne, when, where, how do you write? Is there a particular place? You write at the kitchen table? Do you write? Do you have a little office?
I have a little office. I have a big armchair.
Oh, nice.
And I like to write pen and paper. I like the tactile
you still back
feeling.
Oh, that's great. There's something about that.
Yeah. So draft in the little black and white composition books.
Oh yeah, I still have them.
Yeah.
When I go home today, one of the things I'll do is leave myself a little note of what I did, and I have that all the way back from when my kids were little.
Really?
I used to write about. I mean, I'm amazed to look sometimes at some of my journals and see the birth of my son. My son's 38 years old, and I have his birth, like how I felt when we brought him home. In times when I would stand and look at him in the crib. And I couldn't believe that I did this. I was part of this, So those moments aren't always in photographs.
exactly.
And that's what I try to tell writers.
Right.
Your poems are your photographs.
Right.
They're
That's a great way of
they're
putting
little
it.
capsules.
That's great.
Of
I like
your
that,
life.
Vinny. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I'm thrilled to hear you do that. And I'm thrilled, these people who dare to be different
Yeah.
would be forgotten.
Yeah.
Sometimes you dare to be different, and people go, "No thanks."
Yeah.
And other times,
Well, and I've learned from her. It's difficult, but then in the middle of every book, she'll put a kind of a fable that's you can understand,
helps
and
both,
it's a resting place.
yeah.
Like you don't have to
Yeah.
struggle, and you can go into the fable. And given she lives in that part of France, in the south of France,
Yeah.
where there was the troubadour tradition, there's a little bit of authenticity to it.
how did you get the first copy of this? How did you first discover it?
I came out of graduate school and I wanted to translate French poetry. So I just sent emails all over France to the Sorbonne and what. The problem is that the really famous people are taken.
Of course.
So I was
There's about
lucky.
97 billion interpretations of Shakespearean work.
Well, there you go. There you go. And
True. I thought I was being so unique when I was in college that I did a whole thing on the sonnets. I fell in love with
Yeah.
the sonnets.
yeah.
But so did about 9 million other people.
Yeah. So it's a conundrum, and I happened
Yep.
to find a woman from Texas who was at the Poetry Center in Arles, France, and she said,
Wow.
"You know what? Try my friend Hélène."
Wow.
And I thought, I don't care what she writes. I'm taking her because I
Yeah.
haven't heard of a free
Yeah.
poet.
Yeah. Wow. Wow, that's cool. Isn't it funny how our passions find their own way?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like there's a certain doggedness.
Yeah,
If
I
you
mean-
don't give up.
Yep. I met Sybil 21 years ago on a sign on my way to my 6th grade English class. There it was, and it said that she rode over this spot to help repel the British with Colonel Luddington in 1777. And you said earlier on this show that you have to know your local history.
Yeah.
And you do.
Yeah.
I didn't. So I ended up going to the library and meeting your cameraman, by the way, Andy Campbell, who worked at the library. He handed me this vertical file on her, and I was amazed. And she became a passion for 20 years
Wow.
because I discovered that the story, the biography we knew about her was incorrect. And I spent 3 years trying to write that story. I finally wrote it. Now, almost 20 years later, I go back on the computer and I realize all the mistakes that were made in her biography are back. And people are still repeating the things I corrected 20 years ago and made me nuts. So what I had to do was I went in and I kept reading. There are people saying that she never existed, the battle wasn't important, her father never was there.
Terrible.
And it became a passion. And
You are a scholar.
well, so were you, by all
Well,
means.
no, I-
What you did is you gave life. Is this woman still alive?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yes,
But
yes.
that's what you did. You found your passion in other people, just as I found my passion in Sybil. She's been dead for years. In fact, my daughter used to complain that she was having sibling rivalry with a woman that's been dead for almost 200 years. But it's true. But that's what poetry and writing is all about. It's following your passion. And you obviously have been doing that with your writing. Now, we talked about where you write.
Yes.
Did we ever get an answer?
Just in my big armchair in my
Oh, yeah,
office.
that's right, the big armchair.
Yeah.
And when? Do you write in
Just really in the evening.
evenings?
Yeah.
I write in the middle of the night. I have friends who say, Vinny, did you just send me an email at 3:10 in the morning?
Right.
And I say, yeah, that's
Yeah.
my business
I'm
hours.
trying to avoid writing. I'm emailing you because I don't.
Yeah, but I'm awake then, and no one else is.
Right.
So that's my
Right, the
private
quiet.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's my time to do what I have to do. The only two awake are the cat and myself. And that's my time.
Do you think
So
the quiet aids your
It-
writing?
well,
I mean, the quiet, the global quiet
listen,
at that moment.
when you're ADHD and you're my age, you realize that distractions are not a good thing. So I can't have the phone ring and I can't have anyone at the bell.
Right.
Sometimes the computer gets in the way because I know I can still communicate,
Yeah.
and there are some people still awake.
Yeah.
And I try to avoid that so that I could write. But sometimes I sit down after supper and I don't stop writing till breakfast. And I just go all right straight through the night. And that's me.
That's
That's
how many books do you
yeah,
have?
about 15 altogether.
Okay, well that shows
That's
your
why.
output.
I mean, that's why,
Yeah, yeah.
because that's the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And so finding who you are as a writer
Yeah.
is key.
Yes.
And when you write, where you write, even what you wear when you write
Right.
is very important because
Right.
you need to be comfortable.
Right, right,
Yeah,
it's
not only comfortable in your own skin, but
Right.
comfortable in your own clothes.
Right, right.
You know,
No, it's
which is
true.
really important.
Yeah.
So what do you wear when you write?
My pink fuzzy robe.
Too much information. We don't. Okay. So yeah. So, I mean, and that's really true.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes the pink fuzzy robe is what helps us relax
Right,
and write.
right,
I mean, I put on my sweatpants and I
Right.
get comfortable.
Yes.
And I certainly try not to wear the clothes I wore all day.
Yeah.
Because it's my time.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
time to be in your own head.
Right.
So speaking of being in your own head, you've now written 3 books. Tell me about the 4th one.
Oh, I think I have the 4th and the 5th in my mind coming along.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I think one might be another dual narrative. I'm not sure.
Oh, really?
But
You like that feel of the dual narrative?
yeah, I like the tension
Yeah.
and the resonance
Yeah.
on the page.
Sometimes we have to find a style of our own. Of course, I don't have any one of them up here. I've written poems called diary poems.
Wow.
And what I do is in 10-line poems, I write an entire novel.
Wow.
And the whole book is written in 10-line poems, unrhyming.
Wow.
And then I put 10 poems to a section, 3 sections to a chapter, and then I tell a whole story.
I love
and one is called Emails to a Paranormal.
Wow.
And it's about a young kid who has the ability to talk to the dead.
Wow.
But his father, who was coaching him, gets into a head-on collision and is killed. And he can't communicate with him, and he doesn't know why. So he starts communicating with this paranormal. And the whole book is done in poetry.
Wow.
And it was such a challenge. And the thing about poetry is that it's so terse, it's so exact, you know, and there's just something about being able to tell something in poetry. You lose some of the luxury of prose where you can
Yeah.
talk, and
Yeah.
in case you haven't noticed, I'm a talker. So you have the ability to expound.
Well,
Poetry,
You know, it's one thing you're touching on that I think people don't talk about is that people who are artists have almost like a mystical dimension to them.
you're right. And they have a uniqueness, a style. And that's what I used to try to teach my students. Every single person is different in some way. If you could get your thumb and put it on that difference, you'll make all the difference in the world.
true.
Whether you have diabetes,
Right.
ADHD,
Right.
HIV,
Right.
whatever it is you have,
Right.
you need to take your difference and you need to make something of that difference.
Yep.
And you have to find the special you.
Right.
And your poetry does that. And we could probably talk about that for another half an hour. But Anne, time keeps moving on. So, some final things to talk about with this audience. You came here for a purpose. You came to show us who Anne Cifola really was. Give some final words to these people.
I think probably the thing is, hello, writers.
There you go.
You're at home with the tribe here.
Yes.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself, absolutely, and know that there are many avenues, different genres. There's poetry, there's short stories, there's journalism, there's film writing, and there's translation, which is a very big, open, friendly community.
Yeah,
So-
that's never been brought up, so that's a wonderful thing.
Really a wonderful venue to get credits and residencies and great things. So, yeah, hang in there, keep writing.
Yeah, you hit on some really important points. That when you say you're a writer, that's like saying I cook.
Yeah.
What? You cook hot dogs?
Yeah.
You cook gourmet food? You cook
Yeah.
popcorn?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
When you say I write, what do you write? Campbell soup cans?
Yeah.
Poems?
Yeah.
There's so many different
Yes.
types of writing.
Yes.
You have to find the
Yes.
writer in you.
That's right.
Today, you gave us a little taste of the writer in you, Ansifol.
Thank you,
And
Vinny.
I can't thank you enough for coming here and sharing a piece of yourself.
Thank you.
I especially liked the translation.
Yes.
You know, never even thought of it.
Yes,
but
it's
you're right.
big.
There's some
It's big.
wonderful foreign writers
Yes.
whose message is just as important to us as it is for the people who speak his language
But
or
more
her language.
importantly, I think a lot of poets and even writers feel like there's this glass ceiling in the United States and you just can't crack it. You can't get
Yeah,
published
and you
and you
have-
agonize. Well, the translation community is like, come on in.
Wow.
The publishers are like, we're looking for somebody. It's a completely different feeling. And
Wow.
so I'm trying to get the word out about that.
Well, you heard it here. And we can't thank you enough for being a part of One-on-One with Ansifolo today. Keep writing. Find the poet in you. Find the you in you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this. And thank you for coming here today.
Thank you, Ben.
It's been wonderful. Thank
Pleasure.
you. Keep on writing, and when you finish that fourth book,
Yeah,
I'm here.
you got it.
Ah,
Great.
glad to have you.